Okay, so you know that in the body, during its metabolism, lots of waste is produced, and there has to be a way how to get it out of the body. There are many say organ systems that play a role in this, but most notably is the urinary system. So first, what actually is the part of urinary system? So most importantly is the kidneys. So kidneys are located in something called retroperitoneum. For now, you can just think that they are somewhere in the abdomen at the level of L1 vertebra. So actually somewhat high or higher than you would expect. So they are usually a bad organ in healthy people. Then you have pretty much like the set of tubes that carries the urine that forms in the kidneys all the way out of the body. So the first set of tubes are the ureters. Then you have your urinary bladder. So urinary bladder. Then your urethra. Okay. So here you have your kidney. Kidney also can be separated into parts, to cortex and medulla. You're gonna draw that later. The ureter has at the very top has this like funnel-shaped widening. This is called the pelvis. So pelvis. Sometimes also called urinary or kidney pelvis, or renal pelvis. Okay, and so this is the like very basic anatomy of the urinary system. So now, what are the functions of urinary system? So functions. Okay, so the first few, I'm sure you would guess. So firstly, it would be excretion of wastes. Excretion of wastes. Okay, and there's many compounds that kidneys take care of, that they excrete. But most importantly for exam, it would be the nitrogenous compounds. That means urea, ammonia, and etc. Okay, and many others. Then next function, that would be the water balance, water and ion balance, or water and solute balance. Now obviously you can't just isolate or these wastes, get them out of the body. They have to be dissolved in something, and that something is water. So your kidneys, in order to function properly, they have to excrete a certain amount of water. That's around like 1 liter per day in adults, and therefore you will always be losing sort of body water through the kidneys, through the urine, and along with the water the ions will go. However, the finite amount is not given. Depending on how much you drink, how much you sweat, etc., that amount of water and so that your kidneys will excrete can change quite dramatically. And healthy kidneys can regulate the amount of water and ions that leave your body pretty well. Okay, so then next one. Actually, you could hide it underneath the solute, but I'm gonna say it separately. Next one would be the pH balance or pH maintenance. pH maintenance. In your urine, kidneys are able to excrete H plus ions, and so depending on how much they excrete or how much they dissolve from the urine or keep in the body, that will change the total amount of protons in your body and then the total pH of your bodily fluids. Next, also very important, especially for future clinical practice, would be the blood pressure regulation. Blood pressure regulation. Okay, and there are several hormones that either are produced in the kidney or that act on the kidney that are involved in blood pressure. Actually, majority of the drugs, or at least big part of the drugs that you give against blood pressure, they do not function in the heart, they do not function in the blood vessels, but on the kidneys. Okay, and that also leads me to the next and last point, that would be the hormone production. I know I keep saying it all the time, but I'm gonna say it again. Pretty much every organ or tissue in your body is capable of producing hormones. Kidneys are no exception. And the hormones they produce, we're gonna be talking about them later. Okay, the next will be kidney anatomy. So I already pre-sketched a part of it. So you might remember this would be the kidney itself, and into the kidney you have the first part of the let's say tubular system that carries the urine out. So this is, as you know, this is the renal pelvis, kidney pelvis. So renal pelvis. Okay, and the renal pelvis branches into several calyces. So this is one calyx and several calyces. So renal calyces. Renal calyces. Okay, and they are pretty much like hollow tubes that take the urine away from the kidneys into renal pelvis, then into ureter, bladder, and out. Then the kidney itself can be separated into, let's say, two parts or two compartments. One is these pyramidal shaped areas. This would be called the renal medulla, so medulla. And then the rest we call the renal cortex. So all of this would be the renal cortex. Okay, now what's the difference? For your entrance exam, not much. However, each has slightly different functions. Both contain the major functional unit of the kidney, called the nephron, but medulla and cortex, they contain slightly different parts of the nephrons, and therefore they have slightly different functions. On the topic of nephrons are pretty much again a set of tubes that start in the cortex. Then they have a part that runs in the cortex. They dip into the medulla, and they run in the cortex again, and then they empty into something called the collecting ducts. Okay, collecting ducts are not the part of the nephron anymore, but they carry the urine from many nephrons into the calyx. Right, and here there'll be another nephrons contributing to it. So this bit, this part, this will be nephron. I'll be talking about it in much more detail in a minute. So nephron. And what nephron does, it filters the blood that comes into the kidneys, and that filtered blood, now called either primary urine or ultrafiltrate, it will now go through this tubular system of the nephron, and every single thing or molecule that you want to keep in your body will be reabsorbed back into the blood, and the stuff that you want to get rid of, which is like excess water, solutes, urea, all that will stay in the tubules and the collecting duct and enter the calyces and will be excreted out, peed out. Pretty much as long as something is in the nephron, it has some slight chance of or some chance of getting resolved. By the time the urine gets to the calyces, that's the final urine. You cannot reabsorb anything in the pelvis, calyces, bladder, urethra, nowhere. Okay, I'm also going to mention this area of the kidney where the renal pelvis is located. This is called the renal hilum, and apart from the renal pelvis, you could also find the blood vessels. Right, so we have the renal artery. So renal artery and renal vein. Okay, they'll be located somewhat more centrally, but I already have one label there. Okay, and also the kidney is enveloped in some fibrous membrane. This membrane would be called the renal capsule. Not terribly important. And also around the kidneys you have several layers of fat, and that fat protects the kidney from physical trauma. Also, kidneys are not strongly attached to any structure. They can slide in the abdomen, and it also helps them to absorb some impacts. For example, they are very less likely to get injured during falls than, let's say, spleen, because spleen is relatively tightly attached to the surrounding organs. Okay, so now on to the nephron.